Yo, 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 ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another In the OT podcast for BetHubb Sports Blog.com. Once again, I'm your host, Chad M. Today, we are going to be breaking down what has occurred during the offseason of the NBA up until this point. I wanted to let a couple weeks pass by so things could develop, and of course, yesterday, many of those signings became official. So, let's start with the biggest news, which is surrounding Steve Nash going to the Los Angeles Lakers, and I think this is an absolutely phenomenal move for LA here, because now their offense is just going to become absolutely phenomenal. I believe that some of the struggles they've had last year was when Kobe Bryant gets the ball on the perimeter all by himself and gets into those isolated situations, and the ball does not get into the hands of the bigs as often as it should, and it eliminates good ball movement, and sometimes these guys end up standing around too much, and there's just too much one-on-one isolation going on. Now with Steve Nash running the point, you better best believe that this is going to be one of the most efficient offenses in the league, because now when they throw the ball down into the paint, they're going to have the ability to kick it back out and rely on Nash to hit his jumpers, and of course him being able to set guys up on his own accord, working the pick and roll with Kobe Bryant. It's going to allow more space for him. It just makes their team way, way better offensively. I absolutely love that move. It makes them a contender once again, because I don't think anybody thought they had a legitimate chance last year to compete for the NBA title, with Oklahoma City and San Antonio far superior to them in the Western Conference. And in terms of what's going on with Bynum right now, I guess he's going to stay put. We're not going to go too crazy unless a trade actually happens. We'll break it down then. Another team that obviously a lot of people were questioning what was going to be happening with is Ray Allen with Boston Miami. He ended up selecting Miami, and I think it was a good decision for him and the Heat. And I'm sick and tired of all these people calling Ray Allen a traitor and he disowned the city of Boston. Bottom line is this: if they really wanted him, they would have locked him up and they wouldn't have gone out there and got Jason Terry. And truth be told, I think for Boston it's a better move, because he's a little bit younger, he's a bit more explosive in terms of scoring right now, he's a little bit more reliable, and I think it makes an upgrade for them. And Boston fans, even though they might feel that Ray Allen's a traitor, should realize that their team's going to be better, and they're also going to get Jeff Green back, and they're going to have a couple of good young forwards that can help them out with a Fab Melo and Jared Sullinger from the draft taken later that have tremendous upside that should be able to help KG down low. Boston has done a phenomenal job in the offseason, and I would rank them number 2 behind the Heat in terms of best teams in the Eastern Conference right now. And in terms of Miami, Ray Allen, absolutely phenomenal. He will fit that system perfectly there, because he is just a terrific shooter. And for all the dribbling and driving that Wade and LeBron create on their own, the just has so much traffic converging on them. Now they have a real threat, a consistent threat that can shoot from the outside, because as well as Battier and Miller played, that wasn't something you consistently saw throughout the year. They also picked up Rashard Lewis at a league minimum right now, $2.6 million. You can tell this guy's committed to winning. He was pretty much giving up $13 million he would have made this year had he decided to stay with the Hornets. He was making $20 million the last number of years, completely overpaid. And I think at this point in his career, he realizes that being on a championship contending team is more important to him. And it's not like he's that old either. He's in his young 30s, mid 30s, and he still has a lot to offer. He's only 2-3 years removed from being a borderline all-star. He was a very key part of that Orlando team that made it to the finals 3 years ago, and he could really add some versatility to that roster. He can play a little bit in the paint at the 4. He can also shoot from the outside if he remains healthy. Could be a tremendous pickup for the Miami Heat there. So I love that move for them, bringing in these key role players to help the big 3 there. Now, the other team that's done a lot of movement, obviously, is New Jersey. Well, now Brooklyn, they re-signed Darren Williams. Love that there. I had a strong feeling that was going to be the case. And they also went out and acquired Joe Johnson, a move that I don't think many people saw coming. From Atlanta's perspective, Danny Ferry just wanted to get rid of that massive contract. I think he looked at the core of that team with the likes of a Johnson, a Smith, Horford, and Teague, and said, you know what, this team just is not good enough to win a championship, so we might as well blow up the core and get rid of some of these bigger contracts and sort of start from scratch. And I think most people would admit that Joe Johnson's a nice player. He's an all-star, no doubt about it. But he's not that franchise guy that you can really build around if you want to be a contender. Sure, he can get you to the playoffs every single year and be a middle-of-the-pack team. But for Atlanta, they probably had bigger plans in the future. And for New Jersey, they figure, hey, you know what? Now we have a terrific backcourt with Darren Williams. They do have some other strong pieces. Today they went out there and re-signed Brooke Brook Lopez, which pretty means that Dwight Howard will not be going there. 4 years, $61 million for Brook Lopez, and I think it's a good move. Show the kid the commitment. Enough with the drama with Dwight Howard. If they don't like the package they're getting, they still have good other talent on that team. I do like guys like Gerald Wallace if he stays there. $10 million, maybe a little bit too much, but he's very athletic. He can play the 3 and 4. I think he's going to fit well with Johnson on the floor. So now Williams has some guys that he can rely on to score. Brook Lopez down on the point. I know everybody thinks Chris Humphries is a bit of a goof based on everything that happened with Kardashian, but you can't deny the fact that he's a terrific rebounder, plays hard defense. They have some good pieces, and Anthony Morrow that can shoot off the bench, provide some 3 balls for them. So this team for sure will make the playoffs. I still think they're a piece or two away from really being a contender, but they definitely have improved themselves, and I think Johnson will love being able to rely on having someone like Williams who should be able to get on the ball a little bit in open space instead of having to rely as maybe creating as much on his own as he did before. So that's the Brooklyn Nets there that I think will be a for sure playoff team next year. Now, looking at some of the other teams that have made some key moves, the New York Knicks, they re-signed J.R. Smith. Never liked that move. I think this guy's a hothead. He wants to shoot too much. He's not necessarily the best team player. I just don't really see why they want him there. I don't know what's going on with Lynn right now. They say they're going to match the offer. They don't really have any other alternative options at point guard. Jason Kidd, he's over the hill. The guy can't shoot anymore. He's just a defensive guy. Sets a few guys up here and there. They need to address the future point guard situation. Marcus Camby, another guy that's just going to be a backup, I guess a worse version of Tyson Chandler, if you want to call it that. I don't see much improvement there. Are they going to match the offer sheet that the Raptors gave up to Landry Fields, which is just absurd, 3 years, $20 million. There's a good chance they will let him go with that move there. And speaking of those Raptors, that was one move that I think they'll regret if they actually don't have New York match it. I think this was done strategically to put them in a spot to contend with bringing in Nash and then screw over New York from, maybe having some salary cap room for them. Whatever the case may be, this could really end up burning them. They already have DeMar DeRozan to play that 2-3 position. They went out and drafted Terrence Ross. Why on earth do they need another player that plays a similar position? I just don't get it whatsoever. Colangelo has no idea what he's doing. He's running that franchise into the ground. But I do like the move there of bringing in the point guard from Houston, what's his name there? Kyle Lowry. This guy is very underrated. He's going to play hard defense. He's, in my opinion, an upgrade over Calderon. He's not as fragile as him. He's a little bit younger. He's a bit bigger and stronger, can play better defense. He averages about 12 points, 6 assists a game, and I think he could be good for that. And some of the other moves that I thought that were maybe not quite as in the spotlight as the ones that we had just mentioned that are still going to make teams improve are, we can start with the Atlanta Hawks. Yes, they did get rid of Joe Johnson, but they brought in a very formidable replacement in Lou Williams, who opted out of his final year with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not going to say he's quite as good as Joe Johnson, but he's really not that far behind from a pure scoring ability. He's probably not as big either and doesn't have as much athleticism in terms of length that maybe Joe Johnson brings to the table, but he's someone that could easily come in and fill that scoring void. I think he wants to be more of a starter and have more minutes than what he was receiving in Philadelphia, where he was coming off the bench and they had sort of a team that they never really relied on that one guy, but it was sort of a scoring by committee. When you look at the way the Hawks are set up, they're a team that has more defined roles in terms of guys that are scorers and rebounders and, have that specific set position that they're playing. So I think he's looking for that there in Atlanta. Another move that I think is underrated that just went down today was the Dallas Mavericks getting Chris Kaman. They struck out on some of the bigger free agents that they were probably trying to bring in, like Darren Williams, and possibly even a trade for Dwight Howard. But someone like Chris Kaman here is, in my opinion, one of the more underrated big men in the league. And obviously health is a key issue with him. But when he's healthy, this is a guy that's going to get you 17, 18 points a game, 10 rebounds. He plays hard on both ends of the floor. And considering they lost Tyson Chandler last year, you could see that it was a huge deficiency and weakness on their roster. Teams were able to take it into the paint and sort of expose them a little bit more than they had in past years. Brendan Haywood is pretty much done. The guy really doesn't bring much to the table. So good move by Mark Cuban to bring someone there, because Dallas looks like they're just losing all their key players besides Nowitzki from the championship run they had a couple years ago. So nice to see them stay in the mix there. The Minnesota Timberwolves taking a shot here with Brandon Roy, a very interesting move. It's going to be very difficult to say whether or not this is going to be a good move until he actually plays, because you just don't know with those knees. Sure, everyone would like to think he took a year off and he's recovered and whatnot, but all it takes is one bad injury again. And last year it was so unfortunate to see Rubio go down, because if he was healthy, I really do believe Minnesota would have had a shot to make the playoffs. They have a lot of diverse players on their team. We know what Kevin Love is, a beast of all beasts. 2010 guy is arguably the best forward in the league right now. You see what some of the other kids are doing on this team, like Derek Williams is coming up, and they went out there and brought a Chase Budinger, another sort of athletic guy. JJ Barea, Derek Williams is still a bit of a project. They got the Pekovic guy. So I do like Minnesota's roster there. Good additions. They should be in contention for the playoffs this year. Now, when it comes to Portland, they have sort of lost it getting involved here with some of these RFA deals. They offered one to Roy Hibbert. Roy, they had to match it. There was not a chance that they were going to allow Roy Hibbert to actually walk Indiana. A 7-footer at that age. They might have to overpay him a little bit. And then Minnesota tried to take away Nick Batum from him. Now, Batum hasn't actually had that offer matched yet by Portland, but I have a funny feeling they're going to. They're not going to allow a defensive specialist, a premier wing player like that, just walk. Often, most of the time, these RFA deals end up getting matched just because the teams really don't want to have to let them go when they're this young and they have the upside that they do. A couple of other moves. I like what the Clippers have done. A good move bringing in Lamar Odom. His versatility should help the team. Good veteran player. He likes the city of LA, obviously. He started his career with the Clippers, and this time going back, they actually have some good players. Chauncey Billups coming back, absolutely phenomenal. This guy is a born leader. He might not have the stats that impress you and IU, but he is the type of guy that holds teams together and just automatically improves them based on him being on the court. So I do like what the Clippers have done. They gave Blake Griffin the extension. That was phenomenal for them, because now this is going to make things a lot easier to try and convince Chris Paul to stay long term. I'm really hoping that he does, because they got a lot of good things going on over there. So another nice move for the Clippers, who should be back in the playoff hunt this year. And when we talk about some of the other moves that went down, interestingly enough, the Memphis Grizzlies did not retain O.J. Mayo. He's an unrestricted free agent. I think that means that they're pretty much committing to Rudy Gay long term, and he should be a coveted free agent now with what's going on. Other RFA moves, Eric Gordon, it was Phoenix coming out with that max offer. New Orleans is expected to match that. They can't let him go because they still need that premier scorer to go along with Austin Rivers and, of course, Anthony Davis, who are growing with this team. Because as good as them two are, Eric Gordon is still the best player on that team, a guy that can average over 20 points a game, be an all-star, and be that dynamic player. So those were the moves that really stuck out to me so far in the offseason. I'm sure eventually more of these moves here are going to take place, and we'll break them down as they do. Dwight Howard, the clock keeps ticking. He doesn't move. I'm sick and tired of talking about all these proposed trades, sources this, sources that. I don't like it. 4 teams, players, draft picks, cash. Just tell me when the frickin' trade gets done and we'll break it down then, instead of wasting all this time talking about all these hypotheticals. Chad here with another In the OT podcast, BetHubbSportsBlog.com, breaking down NBA free agency up until this point of the summer.